Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 324, your weekly get-together. We talk about recent gaming news. I'm, as always, your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight we have some Gamecom opening night live highlights I want to get into, and we need to talk about the fact that Embracer has bought everything. Well, not really everything, but they've certainly expanded their catalog significantly. But first, before I get into any of that, I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching us here live at Twitch TV/GamePoints, or later over at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be it YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc., feel free to join the conversation with any thoughts, feelings, questions, comments you might have. Just try to keep them germane to the conversation. If it sounds like I'm a little bit harsh of breath right now, it's because my throat is actively seizing up on me, it feels. It's a warm day, things are in bloom, allergies are shot to hell. It is what it is. But enough about my issues. Let's go ahead and get into the very first story here. I'm going to be talking about some opening night live highlights. Highlights. I am not going to go over every single game announced at opening night live. There is a link to the show provided down below somewhere, regardless of where you're watching at, in that little descriptor area. And, of course, this is going to be posted... no, never mind. I was going to put it up somewhere else, but don't worry about it. But you can watch it on your own time. It was about 2 hours long or so with limited interviews. They did do a couple of those dev talk things that kind of don't really flow with a show like this. But for the most part, it was trailer after trailer after trailer, albeit with some very awkward product placement with a car, for example, and a few really weird awards. We won't be getting to any of that stuff, though. I'm not going to talk about the format of the show as a whole, whether it was good or bad. I just kind of want to focus on the games itself. Starting up with the very first thing they showed off was Everywhere. And I know this screenshot looks confusing at first, especially if you only watched the first part of the Everywhere trailer, because when it shows up, it looks to have like this Fortnite art style, you know, the oversaturated, very cartoony, almost too bright and vibrant. And I really, really hate that art style at this point because everything seems to be aping it. Everything is trying to become Fortnite, and this seemed to be no different. And then it switched to something like this. And the art style of the game changed. And it did it a couple times throughout the trailer. And now I'm curious exactly what Everywhere is, or at least I was at first. See, I watched this trailer and I went, okay, well, what the hell is it? Because it really doesn't explain what it is. They made sure to mention that it was being made by ex-Rockstar devs because everyone starts thinking Grand Theft Auto and you want that search engine optimization to be keying off of that. But they really didn't explain much about what Everywhere is. The one quote that I found in the game that's supposed to be a multi-world game experience that blurs the line between reality and digital world. Okay, that means fuck all. What is it? I have no clue. And then I did a little bit more digging, and it seems that this is probably essentially going to be a glorified NFT marketplace, where you'll be able to create and sell your own things, and developers will be able to take a cut of it. I have said multiple times that NFTs are not going away in gaming. They are, love or hate it, the future of gaming. There's too much table to be left on the money for it. There's too much money to be left on the table for it. And NFTs do expand beyond just pictures of bored apes. That doesn't necessarily mean I want to see them in games. I am not as rabidly, militantly against NFTs as some of the gaming press are. I feel like that is more because of ideological reasons and its association with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which they also hate for, once again, ideological reasons. However, that does not necessarily mean I think this is a great idea to be expanded upon. I just recognize the reality of the situation that as games get more expensive to make, as bottom lines get tighter and tighter and tighter, companies will be looking for every single thing they can do to squeeze money out of the players. It's that app store mentality. It is the get the whale mentality. It is that is now going to be driving your AAA spaces. That is the future, and it sucks. But once again, like I said, I don't know exactly what Everywhere is going to be. Who knows? it might only incorporate them in some small ways, or those rumors could just be flat out wrong. I don't think they are. I could have sworn I remember hearing rumblings about this game before, and they only mentioned it in the context of Web 3.0 and NFT spaces. But they could do something good with it, I guess. I don't know. And that's going to be the theme of the night, by the way. I don't know what this game is. A lot of trailers dropped during opening night live, and with Jeff Keighley presenting, and love him or hate him, he is one of the more prominent hosts in the industry. But there seems to be this habit now, more than ever, of showing a CGI trailer and not explaining anything about your game, other than here's some fancy shit. And we'll get into more of those as we go on. But yeah, everywhere. The first game to be shown, Pride of Place as the opening thing to opening night live, and no clue what it is. Not a good start. Moving on. You also had Dune Awakening, a survival MMO from the people that made Conan Exiles. In fact, I believe that is going to be mirroring Conan Exiles quite a bit. Funcom, I haven't really played a game from them that I absolutely love, but they have some cool ideas, and I'm hoping that this might finally ring true. However, I will say I am not looking forward to being teabagged by someone running around with the name of Paul Atreides nuts. As far as the trailer, once again, see a sandworm coming up, no gameplay, no idea what the hell this game is actually going to be like. I say look toward Conan Exiles because Funcom has mentioned that they are making a Dune MMO to be kind of in that vein of Conan Exiles, but until we see what this game is going to be, well, it's just a glorified CGI trailer. Sony did show up in a weird roundabout sense with introducing their DualSense Edge wireless controller. This thing is essentially their version of Xbox's Pro controller, but not as entertaining to me, unfortunately. It does have some cool things about it. You're going to have remappable controls. You can save profiles to it, so that way when you go from game to game, you can just load that right up. Changeable stick caps and back buttons, always nice, so you have that different tactile feel. For example, the stock DualShock, or DualSense controller rather, doesn't necessarily feel good with fighting games. But if I'm going to be able to put a little ball on top to kind of give me that arcade stick action, it might be worth looking into. Also, there are going to be replaceable stick modules, which of course will be sold separately. Not shown, however, is whether or not this is going to be customizable to the level of the Pro controllers. Am I going to pick my colors? I doubt it. Will I be able to... That's the big thing, right? Will I be able to get like a little inscription emblazed on it like I can with the Pro controller? I love the idea of the Xbox Pro controller. I just have no need for one because I don't have one. But if Sony would have made something that is that functional and that customizable, I might have picked one up. As it stands right now, though, this is kind of like your big, opulent, overpriced gaming mouse equivalent, in my opinion, where it has a lot of button, has a lot of cool functionality, including function keys. But am I really going to use all that stuff? No, this would have been more of a vanity purchase for me. Where I would have it custom colored and maybe like royal blues or maybe even a deep purple or burgundy. However, if I'm still stuck with that shade of color, I don't need to spend the, $150, 200. How much do you guys think this is going to be? Let me know down below. My gut tells me that this is going to be a $150 controller, if not more expensive, which if I'm paying that price, I want the customization. Also shown during the show, Callisto Protocol. What more can we say about the Callisto Protocol other than it's a Dead Space clone, and that is not meant to be a dig. I am really looking forward to it. However, it is really flying close to the sun, in my opinion, as far as copyright goes with Dead Space. I mean, the enemies are called biomorphs, for God's sake. I don't need to see any more of this, by the way. The trailer really didn't give me anything new as far as story went. It just showed the main character getting killed in a couple of gruesome ways, as well as a water slide down the sewer scene where you're dodging the shit coming at you. You've played video games, you know what I'm talking about. Coming out in December, I'm good. I don't see another trailer. Glenn Schofield can go away and finish working on the game, polishing up whatever he needs to. I do not need any more information on this. I am already buying it day one. But thank you for showing up anyways, Glenn. The Lords of the Fallen sequel to Lords of the Fallen. Was formerly known as Lords of the Fallen 2, but they put now that T in front of it to differentiate it and clearly make it not confusing at all. Really don't know who was asking for this. Lords of the Fallen really wasn't all that great of a game, but if you liked it, you got more coming. Moving out to Hogwarts Legacy, a game that I definitely want to play, but I'm not wanting to spend any money on it. I'm hoping it hits Epic soon on their free games thing. I doubt it, though. It looks a little dated, but I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of this trailer show that you might be able to go down a dark wizard path. I'm not a Harry Potter guy. I like the movies just fine, but something about this game makes me want to play it. I can't tell you what. Which brings me to the next big thing I wanted to focus a little bit on, rather than just giving a quick blurb. And that is new Tales from the Borderlands. Randy Pitchford came out to help introduce this game and introduced us to our new cast. Notice it's not Reese and Fiona. It is these three people, a brother and sister and what looks to be a greasy spoon waitress. I don't know how I feel about this. Tales from the Borderlands, the Telltale one when it came out back a few years back, was, in my opinion, the best Telltale game and arguably the best Borderlands content ever released. But as an IP, I'm kind of just over it. And Borderlands 3 really sold that home to me, that this is a franchise seemingly stuck in early 2000 internet humor. And it never really progressed beyond that. Which is a shame, because Borderlands 2 had one of the greatest video game villains of all time, and a wickedly dark storyline that kind of kept me plugged in from beginning to end. It was ludicrous, it was silly, and it had these really shockingly somber moments thrown in throughout the entire game. Borderlands 3 felt like a pale imitation of that never really advanced beyond its beginnings, and it felt dated when it came out. So I don't know if I even care about this IP anymore. And as far as new Tales from the Borderlands goes, I was hoping we'll get some kind of resolution as to what the hell happened to some of the people from the first game, for the first Tale of the Borderlands. Yeah, they had their cameos in the third game, but didn't really explain anything. And I was kind of hoping that might fill the gap in. Now, as far as this new cast goes, I don't know enough about them one way or another to judge them. They seem like pretty stock Borderlands characters. That is to say, over-the-top annoying and very flamboyant, and everything is taken to an extreme. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's fitting for that franchise, but like I said, it just feels dated at this point. I will say it is coming out quick. October 21st is when this does drop. I don't know if I'm going to take a look at it or not. I'm also just kind of over the entire narrative game experience. I'll still play the occasional walking horror simulator every now and then, but to get me to sit down and watch a story these days is very hard for me to do. Let's see. Soul Glove in chat says Saints Row 4 came out in 2013 and they never thought to make something different. Well, we're going to talk about that new Saints Row game, before this show's over with, but that is on the docket. Also, a couple of real quick highlights before I get to the next thing I really want to focus on. You had the Dying Light 2 Bloody Ties expansion. First story expansion to Dying Light 2. Looks really different from the base game. Tortuga had pirates, and that's about all I could tell from that trailer. Marauders, once again, some kind of tactical shooter. Looks kind of GTFO-ish, but not too much behind that. And this is the theme that I'm talking about. You see these quick 30-second to minute-long trailers, and they don't tell you really anything about the game. It's just, here is a bit of setting. Okay, cool. What's your goddamn game? If I can't tell if your game is first-person shooter or RPG or RTS or narrative-based like new Tales from the Borderlands here, your trailer is not doing its job. Sonic Frontiers, by the way, coming in November with a way better trailer than what they released the first time around. I am not a Sonic fan, but this one at least looked competent. You had Quantic Dream's new game with Parallel Studios called Under the Waves. Expect some David Caginess. I want to see more of that before I make a decision on it. You also had Goat Simulator 3 and Return to Monkey Island back-to-back in that case. Two games that have their fan bases. However, I'm not really that interested into it. What did catch my eye, though, oddly enough, not because of the game, but because what you can do in it, is Moonbreaker. Now, Moonbreaker is a little mini-figure game, completely digital, but a mini-figure game from Unknown Worlds. That's the developer who made Subnautica. I could actually care less about the figure game itself. It looked very janky. It had that dialogue that I can't stand anymore. The everything is equipped vibe to it that I'm really just over at this point. However, what this game had that I had not seen in any other game yet so far was an extremely detailed figure painter. Now, as you can see, you're going to be moving these and collecting these little figures throughout the game. Somewhat detailed, by the way. And you can paint them completely. And that speaks directly to the 40K player in me. And I don't mean just changing color palettes. Apparently, from what they were saying in the interview, you have multiple inks and shaders you can put on them to kind of give them a little bit of a differentiation on there. Like, part of the game itself is painting these fuckers. And I've never seen a game incorporate the customization as part of the gameplay, it seems. And I don't want to say looking forward to it, because I'm probably not going to bring this up. I'm probably not even going to bring this game up ever again. But it's the first time I have seen someone actually emphasize the army painter side of a video game, where you can use highlights and inks and base coats along with layers on top of that to kind of bring out your model. I don't want to play the game. I want to play around with that more than anything else. Now, if this is free to play, awesome, great. So one of the few times you're going to hear me saying I hope this game is free to play, because I do want to take a look at it in that case. And given how it's about collecting minis to fight against each other, it probably will be in some sort of, I don't know if gacha is the right word here for it, but I would expect some kind of surprise mechanic monetization system to this here. Who knows, though? We'll find out when it comes out. Also, not what I expected from Unknown Worlds. Unknown Worlds, the guys that made Natural Selection and, more importantly, Subnautica, which is an amazing pair of games. Subnautica and Subnautica Beyond, Below Zero, if you haven't played them. I thought for sure this would be along those lines, because Subnautica and Natural Selection are both in the same universe. I thought this might be a spin-off of that. I wasn't expecting Subnautica 3. I think they would have announced Subnautica 3 just straight up, rather than trying to be coy about, hey, new game coming up from a new IP, and admittedly a new IP. But I didn't expect this. I didn't expect essentially a board game. Oh, also there is some famous writer working behind the scenes on it. Unfortunately, I am unfamiliar with his work, so I didn't bother to necessarily even put his name on here. My apologies. But apparently he has some credit there. So yeah, Moonbreaker. Really want to take a look at its mini painting side of things. You also had Friends vs. Friends, a disc-based shooter, and then probably the thing that caught my eye most the entire night, Lies of P, with this dime store Timothée Chalamet knockoff. Now, don't worry about him. That's not what I'm concerned about. What I caught my eye was the steampunky Bloodborne style combat that I saw on this. It is set in a weird, twisted version of Pinocchio, where you kind of play this cyborg almost. I mean, he clearly looks human, but he's got like multiple steampunk limbs. He seems to be trying to track down an evil Geppetto. It looks great. This has potential secret banger written all over it, and I am super, super excited for it. You know what it reminds me of just a little bit is Greedfall. Not from a gameplay standpoint, but from the aesthetic. And I really enjoyed Greedfall. And I know that's kind of comparing apples to oranges here, and I really shouldn't be associating one with the other, given how radically different these two are going to play from each other. But I see that, and then I look at Spider's other game coming out soon called Steel Rising. And I just have such positive associations with those two games. I think they might be bleeding over to Lies of P. That said, this on its own does look good. I'm not expecting a AAA budget from it. I'm expecting B tier level jank. And I think that is the healthy mindset to go in with this. If you don't go in expecting a super polished game, if you go in kind of expecting your Embracer level tier of video game, I think you're going to be very surprised with what with this one right here. At least I think I'm going to be, and I'm going to keep my hype measured. But I do want to take a look more at Liza P. That name sucks though. It sounds like it's someone named Eliza P, and that bothers me. But that should be coming out soon-ish. Couple of other quick hits that I want to go through real quick. Stranded, Alien Dawn, yet another survival sim. I thought this was Ark 2 or whatever the Vin Diesel game is. What can you say? It's another survival game. Atlas Fallen, sci-fi Persia-ish feel. It looked like it was doing what Forspoken does, but maybe a little bit better. Homeworld 3, don't need to say any more about it. It's Homeworld. Just give it to me right now. Really looking forward to that. Some Genshin Impact stuff, some Honkai Star Rail, which really threw me off because it's an actual railroad in space, like Galaxy Railways 999 or something like that. Sure, that's what they're banking on. High on Life. Oh, High on Life. Hard meh. I think Rick and Morty might have been a mistake. High on Life is the Squanch Games first-person shooter coming out where aliens are kidnapping humans for like drug purposes, and your guns talk to you. And they showed a boss fight during this where it becomes very obvious that Justin Roiland knows two voices, Rick and Morty. And the gun is clearly Morty. And he's acting like Morty. Like, oh, geez, I just shot you. Oh, geez. And I am so tired of hearing the Morty voice. I don't mind Rick and Morty, but goddamn, I don't think I need an entire game, yet another Squanch Games with the Morty voice in it, much like Trover Saves the World. Also, the knife kind of, it was Australian, but it had like the Rick mentality behind it. It's like, I don't get the appeal to High on Life. I don't, but it doesn't have to be for me. You also had the Expanse, Telltale's version of the Expanse game starring Drummer. Kind of a side story going on based on the TV series, not necessarily the books. Looks cool, but I expect all the normal Telltale issues, mainly the no fate but what Telltale makes conundrum. What I mean by that is they'll give you 100 different choices, and you can go down multiple different paths, and your game branches out. But by the end, it all has to come back to where only one or two endings happen, because otherwise you'd have to write 50 different endings. So it's really fat in the middle, but real thin on the start and the end. And I never, after the fifth or sixth Telltale game of realizing what their trick is, I kind of grew up out of it. Now, this isn't really Telltale Games, though. This is Zombie Telltale. This is the corpse that was bought up and then rebranded after Telltale went kaboom, and they kind of reformed under a different umbrella. So who knows if this is actually what it's going to be. And I do like the character of Drummer, but I don't think I need any more Expanse either. I'm good with I'm good with the TV series being wrapped up and the book series being finished. I think I'm good on the Expanse. I really don't need any more of it. But that's coming. Now, for what I would say is arguably the biggest surprise of the night. This goddamn game. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. An 80s cult flick about alien clowns coming down to small town USA and turning the citizens of it into cotton candy that dissolves their insides into a delicious, gooey, sugary drink that they slurp up with a silly straw. The people that created the Friday the 13th game are making a 3 versus 7 asymmetrical shooter on goddamn Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It fits so well, I can't even begin to describe how annoyed I am with it. This is one of those games that the second I saw, I knew it was going to be an asymmetrical multiplayer, and then sure enough it was. And son of a bitch if it doesn't make perfect sense with the absurdity of the setting to it. This is also a game that is not going to last too long after it initially comes out, and they're going to try to bank on making all of their money on nostalgia factor. And I get it. I totally get it. And I know they're going to pivot this as a live service game with, hey, more maps to come and more clowns and whatever in multiple seasons. But let's be 100% real here. Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a cursed IP. It's a bad movie. Admittedly, it's a cult movie. I enjoy watching it on a drunken Friday night with a bunch of friends and we throw shit at the screen. You know those kind of movies. But it is not an IP that has the staying power to hang around for multiple seasons. I could be wrong. The gameplay on this could be really tight and focused, and it could be amazing. But I don't see this lasting more than a few months after launch. No offense to the dev team on this one, but it's... I'm just impressed you actually had the stones to make it. Of special note, though, by the way, the creators of the movie are involved with making the games. There are four of them. They're four brothers. I can't remember their name. So that's always nice when you actually have access to the source material. But sorry, that dry throat thing I was talking about. But goddamn, of all the properties you could have made, this does open up the door, however, to a Critters Left 4 Dead style game where you're fighting off massive rolling balls of porcupines and occasionally get the giant big one rolling at you. They have to dodge or one-hit kill or something like that. Every cheap 80s IP is now up for grabs. And not even necessarily for cheap ones. With the RoboCop game coming out, we just have a Terminator game coming out and the Rambo game before that, I believe. What's old is new again. I don't think this is a one-time surprise, by the way. I do think you're going to start seeing some weird-ass, long-forgotten IPs making their debut again. Embracer, which we'll be talking about later, is leading the way in that by bringing back all these essentially dead games and making new ones or remasters of them. I think that nostalgia is selling right now because no one has any new ideas anymore. And so people are going to try to recycle those old rosy memories of yesteryear into not quite new, but modern facilities? There's a word. I can't pronounce it right now. Of what we once knew in an attempt to cash in on our childhoods because so many of us would rather escape to the past than look forward to the future. Because the future is terrifying for most. Not for me. I think I'm pretty positive on the future, but I get why nostalgia is selling right now. And that means things like killer clowns are going to be up for grabs, which also means we might see scanners or trancers, or Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme, or Hell Comes to Frogtown, the video game. Everything is up for grabs at this point. And I'd be very curious to see a Hell Comes to Frogtown made by Avalanche, the guys that made that Mad Max game. Be very interested to see that. Hell, even World Gone Wild with Adam Ant. Now I'm talking about movies most of you probably haven't seen. So let's go ahead and keep on going with the opening night live highlights, as it were. You had Scars Above, kind of looked like a Tomb Raider cross with Returnal. Yeah, weird song. All right. Listen, you fucks. I get that you worked on great games. Fallout, Dragon Age. Impressive resume at the beginning of it. But you need to let me know what this game is before you pat yourselves on the back on it. Because all it was like a Flash animation. I won't even say Flash. It was just this small little trailer that was essentially two moving pictures transposed on top of each other. It starts off like the daylight one and the nightlight, but they're like those motion comic pictures, and it'll move like real slow. It tells me nothing about the game. All it tells me is that your pedigree. I don't care about your pedigree. I don't. I appreciate knowing the pedigree in addition to what the game is. But if you're not going to tell me what the game is, if I stop watching your trailer and I don't know what the gameplay is in your game, what the base idea of what's going on in your game. Your trailer has failed. Stop giving me pedigree trailers with 2 bits of concept art. Tell me what your game is, or hold on to it until you actually have something to show. Other opening night live things, you had Gotham Knights coming October 21st. This doesn't really feel like it's going to be that big of a seller, and I'm really tired of Harley Quinn as well, but people seem lukewarm on this at best. Where winds meet, this is the open world RPG set in China, along with so many of these other China-themed games. They never really seem to come out, so I wouldn't be surprised if this just gets stuck in development hell as well. Kojima came on because Jeff Keighley was hosting a course, announced he's doing a podcast. They showed Park Beyond, which was Thrillville crossed with Roller Coaster Tycoon. This is when they also had, immediately after this, that weird Pokemon car that really just felt completely out of place here. But hey, you got to pay the bill somehow. Other games to wrap up the night, by the way. You had Phantom Hellcat, which looked a lot like Devil May Cry crossed the Phantom of the Opera. Warhammer 40k Darktide, already sold on it. Don't need to see any more trailers of that. I am 100% in on the history of Vermintide alone. Blacktail, once again, not really sure what this is either, other than it deals with good and evil witches. The Outlast Trials, it is a prequel to the first 2 games, entering closed beta on October 28th. The horror run through hospitals as you're being chased by a giant penis wielding man. Twins, actually. There were twins in the first one, and they were just fully naked and terrifying. Scared the hell out of me. You also had the Finals, which is a competitive shooter, and then finally, the re-reveal of the long gestating Dead Island 2. What can I say about Dead Island 2? Comes out early next year, February 3rd. There are going to be 6 new playable characters to it. The trailer for it was just weirdly censored in certain parts, and I did not approve of that because in the same show where you showed Callisto Protocol getting people ripped apart, and you can't show me what's going on in Dead Island 2, you did that on purpose to get people to go to your site and click on the uncensored trailer, but no thank you. I already know what Gordon Video Games looks like. I don't need more on top of it. Coco for Tacos, good to have you. It took only a decade and some change. Yes, in fact, I remember talking about it on this show like 6 years ago about like pre-order bonuses for the first Dead Island, when it was the dude in the tracksuit running down the boardwalk. I'm wondering if they're contractually obligated to fill those pre-order bonuses. I wish I had that image up here because I looked at it and it was like get a specific weapon and I think a couple of skins as well if you pre-order in advance. I'm wondering if they have to honor those or not. Interesting question. The person that came out was talking about the game said it was going to be pulpy and irreverent. I am tired of that word in video games, irreverent, because everything is. Fortnite has made everything pointless. And what I mean by that is when I can have a video game where I'm playing as Goku and I am bashing a xenomorph with Ariana Grande's body, nothing makes sense anymore. We have hit peak ludicrousness at that point. You cannot out-ludicrous that anymore. So when a game talks about being like just silly, I've seen it. It doesn't bother me anymore. Let's see. You were a sophomore in high school when it was first announced. Yeah, it was easily 8 years ago, if not longer, when it was first announced. This feels a lot like Avatar 2 to me, the James Cameron Avatar, in that it just missed its boat by like a decade. Who was actually looking forward to Dead Island 2 anymore? It's a sequel to a game that really wasn't all that great to begin with. It just did some new things that suckered people in. I don't want to say suckered, sucked people into it. And then what? We're just going to pretend like the last 10 years didn't happen and we didn't move along beyond zombies? Zombies as a game fad are still popular to some degree, but really on the downcline. This really just does feel like something that should have been canceled long ago. And I'm hoping that this turns out to be good. Dry throat. I don't want a game to fail. But this has that Duke Nukem Forever thing written all over it. where it stops becoming about, is this game going to be successful and earn a return on investment on it, and more, I'll be damned to let it die kind of mentality. And we're going to push it out no matter what. And that's what this feels like to me. And this trailer, with it really did not do anything to sell it to me, because once again, it felt dated. This felt like a trailer to something from 5 years ago. Not visually. Visually, it looks fine. But just in tone and tenor, I am kind of over the whole idea of, oh, it's the end of the world, and I will face it with the same amount of drama and commitment I would going to the gas station to get a thing of milk, which is more or less what the trailer is actually about. It's that Joss Whedon-esque, everything has to be a quip, everything has to be said in a tone that makes you sound terminally bored with the situation. It's that whole idea of, like, when someone gets punched really hard and they drop off of a building and get hit by a car on the way down, and they just kind of go, well, I guess I didn't expect that to happen, kind of shit. It's like, dude, no, stop. Not everything needs to be Nathan Drake giving off one-liners. And admittedly, this trailer didn't really give off any one-liners. I will say that. But it still has that same irreverent tone. I'm going to come back to that word, irreverent, because that is what one of the devs said when introducing this game. I am tired of irreverent. That's not to say it has no place in video games. That's not to say zombies have no place in video games. That's not to say this art style has no place in video games, but look at this goddamn cover and tell me that this couldn't be a cover for Fortnite. Or any myriad of other trailers and video games that we've seen over the past 3 years. This is what browns and grays were during the Xbox 360 era, when everything needed to be Gears of War. Please, I am begging you, devs, stop chasing trends. Start creating trends. Please. Let's take a look at the chat here. The edgy early 2000s tropes were juxtaposed in the early 2010s, and it has overstayed its welcome. 100% agreed. 100% agreed. And that kind of wraps up what we saw at Opening Night Live. It was a bunch of, I'm hesitant to say B tier games, but it was a lot of those B tier games. There was nothing there was nothing from the majors. There's nothing from the big boys at Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft that show up here. I don't think we had anything from Activision or EA here. Yeah, this was a lot of the more smaller publishers. Small, I mean, 2K is not small, but you know what I'm getting at. A lot of European publishers as well, which makes sense because Gamescom is a European show. It's meant to have that European focus, which explains some of the weird awards they gave out. But anyways, the entire video to Opening Night Live at Gamescom will be posted down below if you want to watch it in 2 hours in its entirety. It was a reasonably brisk show. The pacing was good. There wasn't a part where I had to stop and get up for a refreshment, other than the weird carbon neutral spiel when I got up and got some tea at that time. But for the most part, it did kind of go. It's just there wasn't anything super entertaining at it. There's one more news story that happened that I have to address. And it deals with Embracer Group, because it's funny that we're talking about Embracer again, because that's what the Dead Island 2 is associated with. But apparently they went on a bit of a spending spree over the past few days. I'm going to bring up here this thread from YO64 over on Twitter. Embracer Group bought a whole bunch of shit, including things I'm kind of surprised they grabbed. First up, they nabbed limited run games. These are the people that take all those really old games that don't exist anymore, as well as some newer indie ones, and make very limited run physical copies of them. I love these guys, actually. They're great. But Embracer owns them now. They also bought Scene Tricks, which is essentially a karaoke company. The IP rights to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit literary works by Tolkien, which really makes me wonder where where the Peter Jackson films stand now, where the Amazon Rings of Power show stands, where a lot of this stuff works. Like, who gets control of the Shadow and Lord of Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War games now that WB did. Uh, that's a big one, and I have to wonder who the hell sells the IP rights to Lord of the Rings. How did they outbid Amazon? I want to know the details of this. I want to get into more details about what this is, but they don't really give anything despite this massive wall of text that you see right here. But yeah, Embracer owns the IP rights to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit now. Just think about that. They also bought Tuxedo Labs. These are the guys that made Tear Down. That is that nifty little voxel heist game where you can knock down like any building and create weird paths to get to like different things and stuff like that. Looks great. Take a quick little trailer at it. It's actually cool looking. They also bought Tripwire Interactive. These are the guys that make Maneater and Killing Floor. They also announced an 11th operating group, essentially a subsidy underneath themselves, that is going to be focusing on retro, classic, and heritage gaming and entertainment, game development, production, devices, gear, and collectibles. Which makes sense why then they would have bought also Tatsujin and Bitwave and Geotech. They tend to be focusing on retro games or accessories in those cases. There is one more bit right here I want to mention. They purchased one studio that remains unannounced. The following quote: Embracer has entered into agreement to acquire another company within PC console gaming that, for commercial reasons, is not disclosed today. The purchase price for this undisclosed acquisition is in the range of being among either the third or fourth largest of the transactions. No idea what it could be. I have heard rumors that this is Koei Tecmo. Purely unsubstantiated. It comes from someone who is right kind of 50% of the time on this stuff. They do know what they're talking about. But I don't necessarily put faith in this. And I am just telling you what they heard at like a water cooler one day kind of equivalent. So I would not necessarily put stock in that, but that is what I have heard, is that is Koei Tecmo. Who the hell actually knows what it's going to be when it drops? But we'll probably be hearing about that in the next couple months or so. I would start considering who might have a game releasing over the next 2 or 3 months, or might have some announcements over the next 2 or 3 months. And then work from there if you want to figure out who that is. That kind of does it for the big news stories I wanted to cover today. There are 2 delays because we are in the year of the delay. First up, we have Flashback 2 getting delayed to a nebulous 2023. Okay, cool. I actually forgot they were making a sequel to Flashback 2, which is funny because they've already made a sequel to Flashback called Fade to Black. But we're just going to pretend that doesn't exist. We're going to focus solely on the main Flashback and its kind of cool looking sequel. I do want to take a look at that. You also had High on Life. I mentioned them earlier, but they have been delayed by a scant 6 weeks to December 13th now. So if you were looking forward to High on Life, just gotta wait a few more weeks. I'm far more fine with that kind of delay because that's usually because of marketing or getting the hell out of the way of, say, God of War, for example. I'm far more fine with that kind of delay than the, hey, we had this date set for April of 2022 and now it's sometime in 2024 kind of bullshit that happens. That's fine. We do have a few upcoming releases I want to mention real quick, too, now that we're on the end of the show here. What am I looking for? There we go. Saints Row comes out this week, or actually came out today on PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. Experience the biggest and best Saints Row playground ever. The unique sprawling world of Santo Ilso is a backdrop for a wild, larger-than-life sandbox of thrilling side hustles, criminal ventures, and blockbuster missions as you shoot, dive, and wingsuit your way to the top. This game has released by the time this is going up, and my god, is it just getting eviscerated online. I think it's sitting at an average Metacritic of like the low 6s. Compilation vids of bugs and errors and cheesy dialogue and really just bad gameplay in general. This I would stay far, far away from this. This game has free on Epic written all over it in about 2 months or so. And that sucks because I love Saints Row so much. I don't mean this one. I mean like the original games. Saints Row 2, Saints Row 3. Saints Row 3 is probably one of the greatest comedy games of all time. Saints Row 4, Gataville, not so much. I expect more from Volition. I expect a lot more from Volition. And now we know why this was delayed. It probably could have stood to been delayed again. And I get that I have been hammering the delays and all that stuff, but this is why you do not give your games release dates until you know for sure you can hit them with a fully polished product that is quality. Because people are going to look at this and wonder, wait a minute, if this was delayed 6 months, what was at stake 6 months ago? What did you spend that 6 months on? Rightly or wrongly? It's a bit unfair, but they're going to do that. And man, is this just... Saints Row is not good. Caveat emptor on that one. Also coming out this week's SD Gundam Battle Avalanche on the PC, on PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Nintendo Switch. SD Gundam Battle Alliance is a multiplayer Gundam action RPG where you can smash foes solo with friends in extremely mechanized combat, acquire new mobile suits, power them up, and take them into battle in various missions. It's another Gundam game. This is the SD side of things, so super deformed, a little bit chibi looking, kind of childish, cartoony. People love a Gundam game. Well, let me rephrase that. People who love Gundam love a Gundam game. Bandai Namco has a shit ton of these things out there, so they clearly sell. Also out this week, Soul Hackers 2 on the PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. Explore a supernatural RPG with stylish summons and dark dangers lurking under the neon lights of a cyberpunk Japan. It's up to Ringo, an agent of Aeon, to save the world from the apocalypse. It's Atlas. Makers of Persona, makers of Shin Megami Tensei, makers of Devil Summoner. I'm probably going to get this eventually. Not right now. I have too much on my back burner, but I do want to take a look at this eventually. It is weeb shit, and I love me some weeb shit. Finally, and this I actually might play this week, Brock the Investigator on PC. Not Brock the Investigator, Brock the Investigator, as in an alligator who is also a private eye. Can't make it up. The very first punch and click, Brock is an innovative adventure mixed with beat 'em up and RPG elements. In a grim world while animals have replaced mankind, what kind of detective will you be? This reminds me a lot of Final Fight, or it's a beat 'em up. So you're going around as this anthropomorphic alligator wearing a detective coat and hat and jeans and beating the shit out of people who are trying to keep you from solving the case. There is something about this I want to take a look at. It does have kind of a budget feel to it, but I don't know. It's got my curiosity in a week where I was thinking of buying Saints Row, and then it came out, and I immediately backed off of that. So I have this newly opened gap in my playing schedule, and I'm probably going to fill it with Brock the Investigator. We'll see. If I do get it, I'll be streaming it later this week. And that kind of does it for new releases, which means that does it for the show as well. This has been GamePoints episode 324, and thank you all for showing up. If you like what you see here for some god and unknown reason, you know what to do. Likes, follows, bits, subs, all that good stuff. The things that every streamer wants. We do stream this live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints, and thank you all for showing up. Soul Glove, Taco, BVS, I think I see you floating around, to anyone else who happens to be lurking that I see in there too. Good to have you. There's a Discord you can join, link provided down below. You can follow myself at CapitalistPig21 on the Twitters, and I do stream games throughout the week here at twitch.tv/GamePoints. Once again, thank you all for showing up. This has been GamePoints. Until next week, I'm out of here.